Welcome to the name of the this workshop. It is Action Plan. And my name is Tina, and I'm a compulsive overeater and recovering bulimic. The session format is one speaker for 35 minutes and answer, share, and shares. Before I introduce the speaker, here's some housekeeping information. Attendees are set to mute. Ask you to rename yourself to your first name and last initial. If you wish, you can add your phone number or email. The session is being recorded. Only the audio portion will be made available. Please stop your video if you are walking around, driving, or eating. You will still be able to hear the session. You may turn off your video for you. Please send a chat message when you are ready to have your video turned back on. If you want to change your view settings, click on the view button on the top right of your screen. You may choose either gallery or speaker view. Also, please note the chat is set to host only. Questions and comments will only be seen by the host. Our speaker is Joe A. from Houston, and Joe, it's your show.
Okay, 35 minutes, correct?
Yes.
If you give me a prompt at 25 minutes and then again at 5 minutes before it ends.
Okay, I sure will.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Joe and I'm a compulsive overeater. I still miss from live meetings everybody saying back, hello, Joe. It's something that, because what it does is it makes me part of a community. And I think that that is a very important part of Overeaters Anonymous. To just qualify quickly, my top weight was in high school. It was somewhere around 300, 325. I'm not sure because I didn't weigh. And I remember my belt size was somewhere around 56 to 58 inches. And I started gaining weight at about age 13. And I went from very thin to that weight in about 2.5 years. I was trying to cover up feelings. I was trying to not feel the pain, emotional pain that I was feeling most of my life. And when I came into Overeaters Anonymous, that all changed. I lived in Houston in 1976, I came to Houston and I started my own business in 1976 or 78. And I started to, I would go in a yo-yo type of diet. In 1977, I actually went on my last diet before Overeaters Anonymous. And that consisted of a bowl of vegetable soup and a glass of iced tea every day for 9 months. And it was out on the table waiting for me at the restaurant when I came into the restaurant. And then I would have a very heavy dinner of 40 to 50 milligrams of Valium dropped in 3 or 4 scotches. And that's all I had to eat for 9 months. I went down from 272 pounds down to 141 pounds. And one of my fellow employees said, I had a complete psychic change, but it was not quite the psychic change that it mentions in the big book. In 1983, I bought a building with 2 people. And I think they knew after about 2 weeks with me, because I was absolutely nuts. I was literally crazy, that they needed to either drink again, they were 6 years sober, sell the building at a great loss, or get me into a 12-step program. And they started very slowly 12-stepping me into Overeaters Anonymous. Using the tagline, we've seen many people there lose a lot of weight. And so, I just didn't think it'd work for me. The only thing that ever worked for me was drugs. And, I just ignored it till May of 1983, the Friday before, 7 to 8 days before Memorial Day, or 9 days before Memorial Day. On a Saturday, I was driving along, doing something that I hated to do once again, because I couldn't say that longest word in the English language, no. And I was going about 70 miles an hour on a freeway. And there was a car parked in the freeway. And I hit it at about 70 miles an hour. And I walked away. I had one small bruise on my stomach. I wasn't wearing a seatbelt. I had chained it off in the back. And I then started to, I went to the doctor on Monday, and he said to me, you know, the only reason you weren't hurt is because you're so fat. And he said, you know, at our last physical, which had been a month before, I told you you needed to lose weight. And I said to him, I've been thinking about going to Overeaters Anonymous. And I think that that's where I took the first step when I realized that I was powerless. I came into the program I actually went to my first meeting on the Friday before Memorial Day, 1983. And I heard in that meeting several things that were to change my life. One was that there was a solution to how I felt. 2, I was only sick as my secrets. And 3 is that I should have 3 meals a day, nothing in between, no sugar. And I thought, you know, I didn't know. I just didn't think I could do it. I didn't think I could live without sugar. And because I only did 1 meal a day, and that was starting at 10:30 at the Haagen-Dazs ice cream store. And it ended at 1 o'clock in the morning after I had been looking at love in all the wrong places. And, you know, I just ate continuously for that period of time. But I went to a family reunion the next day, and I made the mistake of telling them I was on a diet. And all I heard all weekend was, Joe, can we make you something special? We can't make that. Joe can't eat that. And, you know, on Monday after I left that OA, that family reunion, from Saturday to Monday, I had 3 meals a day, nothing in between, and no sugar. And that's been my abstinence since May the 28th, 1983. I've had continuous abstinence. I must say that it's never been perfect, but it's never really broken certain rules that I have, which are no eating between meals and no sugar, and later no flour. What it has done is changed my life. Now, we were talking about old timers before the meeting. And really, you know, I just think of myself as an old fart. But anyway, what it is that, you know, OA was a little different when I came in. And there wasn't much emphasis, as I remember, on the tools. And we concentrated more on 2 or 3 things, which were very important to me. One is maintaining my abstinence through my food plan, going with my food plan and following it no matter what. Even if my ass was falling off, I didn't overeat. 3 is I get rid of my secrets. I go to a meeting every day. I get a sponsor and I talk to the sponsor. And, you know, I help people if they ask me to sponsor them, and I do service. So those were what I did early on. Was all of those things is what I did. Now, Action Plan was the last tool, I believe, that was approved by World Service. And when they texted me and said I was going to talk on an action plan, I thought, oh my God, I never follow one. I don't even know what it is. So how am I going to talk on it? And then I got to thinking about it. I want to read what it says in the OA literature. It says, an action plan is the process of identifying and implementing attainable actions that are necessary to support our individual abstinence. Just like our plan of eating, it may vary widely among members and may need to be adjusted to bring structure, balance, and manageability into our lives. Now, for me, my first action plan was just following my plan of eating, getting down on my knees every night and thanking God for keeping me abstinent and asking him to do the same tomorrow, and going to meetings and getting a sponsor and working the steps. You know, it wasn't written down. I was one of those people. There's a story in the meditation book for today where it talks about a woman who made lists all the time. And she once looked at her lists and she wrote down everything she needed to do for the day. And at the end of the day, she'd only done 4 or 5 of them. And she realized that she could never get all those things done in a week, let alone a day. And I identified with that because I was a maker of lists. I would make a list on everything. You know, I needed to call such and such. I needed to do such and such. And then at the end of the day, I would cross them over and there would only be 2 or 3 that were crossed out. So I think it was good for me that in the beginning, I didn't really write it down. But I want to talk to you about what I did, which was really a plan of action for me. After that first meeting on Friday night, I talked to the 2 people that brought me into the program. And I said, you know, is this a cult like the Moonies? And they said, no, it isn't. Because I seemed to think that there was a light of chanting and praying in that meeting. And I really thought I might not be able to stick around because they said a prayer I did not think I could remember. I really did not think I could remember the Serenity Prayer. It would seem so long and complicated. And they said, no, it isn't a cult. And I said, do I need to go to more than one meeting a week? And they said, it's probably a good idea. So what I did was I started going to both AA meetings and to open AA meetings and to OA meetings. And eventually, after about a month and a half, I was going to a meeting or two a day. And I was finding in those rooms something I had never found before in my life, which was relationships and community and people who loved me no matter what. Even when I got rid of all my big secrets, they said, we still love you, we know. And so, you know, what I had to do was had to start to look at how I was going to structure my program. First of all, I followed a food plan. It's part of my first thing that I have on my action plan is I follow my plan of eating no matter what. Now, for me, what I had to do was in my plan of eating was not only have what foods I eat, but I had to do some other things too. One is I had to set times at which I would eat. In other words, I set between 7:30 and 9:30 was breakfast, 11:30 to 1:30 was lunch, and 5:30 to 7:30 was dinner, unless I ate after a meeting with the group. And I had to stick to those because I was a grazer and I couldn't do it. So my first plan of action was I had follow my plan of eating, and then I set the times that I was going to eat. Second, I had to put on my action plan where I was not going to eat. And that included buffets, ice cream shops, places that, you know, were tricky for me because, I went one time to a restaurant because they advertised they had the biggest chicken fried steak in Texas. And so, I had to avoid those kind of places. So what I did was I set places that I didn't need to go, that weren't healthy for me. And everything in my program that I'm doing is not to get to a normal weight or be thin, it's to get to a healthy weight. That's real important for me. So I set where I couldn't go. I talked to my sponsor about places that were good for me to eat. I then talked with people, I looked at people that I could not eat meals with. Now that sounds strange, but it was like a sponsee I had one time said she'd get 30 days and then she'd binge, 30 days and binge. And I finally said, what do you do on the 30th day? And she says, I go to lunch with my mother. And I said, what do you think you can do to stay abstinent longer than 30 days? And she thought for a little while and she said, maybe not go to lunch with my mother and instead go to coffee. Things like that I had to look at because they were important in my early abstinence. And, even in the program, there are people that I cannot eat with even today. And there's several reasons for that. One is they're binging out while I eat, which just drives me crazy. Two is they are treating the waitress terribly. They're very rude. They're very inconsiderate to the person that's serving us. It's not practicing the principles in all the program. And that's one thing that I was trying to do from the very start. So those are the basics of my program, a plan of eating. What I also had to do was look at meetings. I went to my first meeting, like I said, on May the 28th, 1983. I started going to meetings. I started to explore. I became sober on October 6, 1983. And I went to my first meeting on sex and love in November of 83, because I have all three diseases that can accomplish those diseases. I have a great little deal of that I am very talented in switching addictions. If one is not bothering me, I can go to another, and then I can go to another, then come back to that. And so I was starting to switch addictions. And so what I had to do was look at that because they were affecting my food. They were affecting my food. And that was the thing more than anything else that I wanted to put at the heart of my program. I had to make abstinence the most important thing in my life without exception. So what I had to do was I started to go to meetings. I didn't raise my hand in meetings. I was way too shy. You know, I'm an egomaniac with an inferiority complex. And so what I have to do is I have to, you know, the promise that was most important to me is fear of people and economic insecurity would leave you. And that was because I was so afraid of people. I couldn't communicate with, I couldn't socialize with people. So part of my plan of action was that first night, the two people that took me to that meeting dragged me to coffee afterwards with some other people in the meeting. I had to make myself go. It was on my plan of action. If I look at it as a plan of action, I went to dinner with the people if they were going to dinner after the meeting. I was going to coffee. I wasn't afraid to say, can I go with you? These types of things, because I wanted to have recovery above anything else. At the meeting, I learned almost how to eat because I watched people that had really good abstinence, what they ordered and how they ate. I learned to talk to the two people on either side of me and the people across the table. I learned how to communicate with them in an intimate and loving manner. And that was something that was brand new to me because, you know, I couldn't be intimate with another person because I felt if they really knew me, they would go running out of the room, screaming and yelling. So that's what I had to do is I had to learn how to socialize. So I didn't raise my hands. Finally, someone called on me and I spoke for the first time, I think after about 3 months. And I was scared and I just told the truth. That's another part of my plan of action is I tell the truth. I'm honest with other people. You know, even today I'm honest. You know, I was talking in a meeting today that I lead and I said, you know, I'm going to a party tonight in AA, 70th anniversary of a 70th birthday of a woman. And she always has a table about 12 feet long and 3 foot wide covered with food. I said, I need to make a commitment that I will stay on my plan of eating and my abstinence tonight. Now, I could have made that a secret and binged my head off tonight, but I didn't. What I did was I got rid of my secrets. There's enough tapes of me speaking out there that have all my secrets from the past. So what are my secrets today on my action plan that I need to tell every day to people? It's what I'm feeling or what happened to me yesterday or what happened to me today and how I'm feeling and what my emotions are. In other words, if I was meeting with somebody this morning and they totally ignored me, said something that was derogatory about me, and I didn't say anything in reply in a loving way, and I say in a loving way, that is a secret because I'm emotionally upset about what happened to me. And that was something that I used to eat over all the time. So what I had to do was I had to learn how to talk about my secrets, whether they happened 70 years ago, 75 years ago, or whether they happened today. It's very important. And my secrets mostly today because most of my actions don't involve honesty, cash register honesty, or physically hurting people. It's more about spiritual stuff and emotional stuff that happens to me or I do to other people. And my secrets can also be what I do to other people where I know that I need to make amends and I don't immediately. So, you know, that is part of my plan, my action plan is getting rid of my secrets. Another part of my action plan is service. About 5 months in the program, we were still having meetings where we made coffee at the meetings and everything else. And I volunteered to make the coffee for a month. I was thrilled because I had something to do for that meeting. And so what I did was I carried the coffee pot home. I came back in early, I made coffee. And what I did was made a commitment that anytime I had a service commitment, I would not break my abstinence. Anytime I had a service commitment, I would not bring my abstinence. For the past 38 years and 1 month, almost, well, 2 weeks, I have had a service commitment in Overeaters Anonymous. It sometimes has been at a group level. It sometimes has been at a intergroup level, sometimes at a region level, sometimes at a national level, but I've always had a service commitment. They told me when I came into the program that service is slenderizing. And so, you know, of course, when I came in, all I wanted to do was be thin. And so, you know, what I did was I started to do service because it came to me that if I did service without asking anything in return, it was being humble and it was being teachable. And so what I did was started to do service without having to be recognized for it. And that was real important. I came into a national position in Overeaters Anonymous, and I didn't tell my local group, I didn't tell the intergroup anything. Someone finally asked me about a month, did this happen to you? And I said, well, yes. And she said, why didn't you tell us? And I said, well, I just didn't think I needed to make it a big deal. And that's what it is like, you know, is not making it a big deal. On my action plan also is, they say in AA, not said as much in OA, don't make any major decisions your first year. Well, I had to make major decisions my first year. But what I came up with that worked for me is that I needed to make no decision major. I need to make no decision major, because before Overeaters Anonymous, I never had an opportunity, I never was willing or able to change a path that I was on. When I came into Overeaters Anonymous, they told me, I asked them what I had to change. They said, the only thing you have to change is everything. And so what I had to do was, I had to be willing that if I took one path, I could change that path and go a different path. And that was something that was very difficult for me, because I'm an egomaniac. You know, I have to have everything my own way. You know, it's about getting my own will. It's about self-centered fear, you know, that I'm not going to get my way when I want it, how I want it, and so forth. You know, if I didn't get my way yesterday, it's a resentment. If I didn't get my way today, it's anger. And if I don't think I'm going to get my way tomorrow, it's fear. And so what I'm doing is I'm constantly in the battle of will and of self-centeredness and selfishness. So what I had to do was make a part of my action plan is make the 6th and 7th step a hallmark of my plan from the day that I started to today. Step 6 is, for me, is not doing the things that I want to do, not doing the things I want to do. And step 7 is doing the things I don't want to do. An example would be, is if someone makes a really rude comment to me, is to yell and scream and throw something, which is what I used to do. So I don't do that. But what I do is today is I do one of two things. If I know it won't make any difference, I just ignore them and know that I'm okay the way I am. Or in a very loving, kind way, I tell them I was hurt by their comment or their action. It's called setting boundaries with people. And part of my action plan became, I let people know what I need from them. I was never able to do that. Is I let them know what I need from them. And then I set a boundary that there are certain things that I don't want from them, that I don't want them to do. And this was especially hard with my family, because I don't know if any of you came from a dysfunctional family, but I came from a dysfunctional family. And so, you know, my biggest problem was my dad. And so, you know, when I first came into the program, I had to take a plan of action to clear up my relationship with my dad and to accept him the way he was. And so what I did was I started to hug him. And my dad was not a hugger. And so I would hug him and he would do nothing. He'd just have his hands down the thing and I'd say, I love you, Dad. And he wouldn't say anything. He'd say goodbye and leave. And I did that for about 6 months whenever I met him, or 6 or 12 times I met him. Then one day he put one arm around me. I did my usual, said I love you, left. Next 3 or 4 or 5 times later, he put both arms around me. And then I said, I love you, and left. And then one day on the phone, we were talking, and I always ended it with, I love you both. And we were talking, and my dad, before I said it, said, I love you, Joe. And it was that process of taking and working the steps in all my life. I was able to accept him and forgive him, whether he forgave me or not. So what I could do then was to allow myself to be open to his love in the way that he could give his love. And we had a different relationship. I won't say that it was a father knows best relationship. Of course, I have a friend who says father knows best should be sued for false advertising. But anyway, if you remember, father knows best. But anyway, it was allowing me to love him in my way and him to love me in my way. And so, I was able when he died to say that don't resuscitate him because he did not want it. And that is a very difficult position. I had to do the same thing with my mother. So what I'm trying to say through all of this is I have looked at my life. I have seen what I was doing wrong, how I was not being the person that I really wanted to be. And I was changing in order to become the person that I wanted to be. My action plan is to be the person that I always wanted to be. And so what I'm doing today is I'm slowly I've changed a lot, but there is a line in the big book that is really, really hateful. I wish they would take it out. And that is, more shall be revealed. And so what is happening is, as I live and I get old, I'm 77 years old. I have now been abstinent for I'm 76 years old. I have been abstinent for half of my life. I have changed. I'm a different person than when I came in. You would have not liked me when I came into this program. Believe me, I was terrible. The person that brought me into this program, the two people brought him, said, I used to come in like a hurricane and leave like a tornado and leave wreckage in the path. Because I could come in, I could find your weak spots, I could stick a knife in your back, twist it, pull it out, and go out of the room laughing. That was the way that I was. Today, I don't do that. That's one of the things about step 6 and 7. I'm not doing that today, even though sometimes I want to do it. Also, too, is I'm continuing to work what I did when I first came in the program. I'm continuing to do the basics. I have never got away from going to meetings. I don't go to as many meetings as I used to. Now, during the pandemic, I have started to go to more meetings because I actually love Zoom meetings. A lot of people don't, but I do, because I get to go all over the world. And so what I do is, I still go to meetings. I go to at least 3 to 5, 7 a week. I follow my plan of eating. I try to stay a healthy weight. One of the weird things is that when we went into lockdown here at March 1st, now you have to remember, for the 37 years before last March, I never cooked a meal at home. I ate every meal at a restaurant. I'll say 99%. When my house flooded, I asked the interior designer, do I need to put in a kitchen because I really don't use it? He said, you might want to put one in for resale. And so I ate every meal out. But what I did is I looked at the menu, I found what was on my food plan, and I had committed to follow my plan of eating. So what I did was I chose things that were on my plan of eating. Now, there used to be a chain here in Texas called Luby's, and people used to kid me about having stock in Luby's because I said, a Luann platter is perfect for me. It's a reduced portion of meat and 2 vegetables. That is my basic meal, a reduced portion of meat and 2 vegetables. And what I did was I followed that for years. I got off it a little bit. It was still within my plan of eating, but for one thing, I went down to an anorexic weight. I was under eating for about 5 or 6 months, and I went down to an unhealthy weight. One of the hardest things you can do is be anorexic and eat in this, or beat anyone and eat in this program to come up to a healthy weight, because people start to criticize you in their minds. And of course, my mind picks up what their mind says, even though they aren't thinking that. So what it was I had to come up to a healthy weight. I came up to a weight that was healthy for me, and I maintained that weight. The 4 or 5 years after I started that weight, I started to gain a little bit, and I went up 1 pant size. And so, or a pant and a half size. So when the pandemic came, I went back to that Luann platter. 2 vegetables and a reduced portion of meat. I've actually lost, I don't know, between 25 and 35 pounds in this past year. And I'm at a weight where I was when I was really wanting to be for most of the time in the program. So I have stayed pretty well the same weight. I had to find something that works for me. And that's the thing is, anything I've said today, if it doesn't work for you, throw it out. Throw it out. I've often said, if you follow my plan of eating, you'll gain 1,200 pounds. If I follow your plan of eating, I will gain 1,200 pounds. You have to find what works for you. And that is part of your plan of your action plan, is finding what works for you. I have long recommended people go to a nutritionist or go to one of the health organizations that have healthy diets, go to Dignity of Choice, which I used for years, and find a plan of eating, and then talk with your sponsor. Again, part of your action plan, talk with your sponsor and find something that works for you, something that you can live with on a daily basis. I don't feel deprived most of the time with my food, unless I'm emotionally upset. Then, there isn't enough food to fill my stomach. So what it is I have reached a point, and I was lucky I became abstinent right away. But, Roseanne for us was the perfect founder. Roseanne started the program in 1960, and she got her final abstinence sometime around 18 years before she died. The other time when I was talking to her quite a few times, she would mention that she was at her heaviest weight in Overeaters Anonymous after she started the program. But what she did was she kept coming back. Part of my plan of action is she kept coming back. No matter what, she kept coming back. Sometimes she was in a heavy coat in the back of the rooms hiding, but she kept coming back until she was able to gain an abstinence that worked for her. And that's a great lesson for us. Bill Wilson never drank again. And he started the program, in 1935, 2 days ago. It was the birthday of AA. And Dr. Bob actually did have one bottle of beer after he got sober. So, Bill Wilson was perfect because he didn't drink again. Roseanne was perfect because she showed us that the only important thing is you keep coming back. When I came to meeting the first time, there was 100 to 125 people in the room. Today, 5 minutes?
Yes.
What? Yeah, 5 minutes. Today, meetings have come down. We used to have 110 meetings in Houston. Now we probably have 70. So, OA has come down in size and everything because it's a very, very difficult program to get. We were talking about this at lunch when I went to lunch with some friends after a meeting, still socializing. And we were talking about that it's the first addiction I had. When I was screaming and yelling and everything else as a baby, what did they do? They fed me. I found early on that food was a comfort for feeling bad emotionally and physically. So what I've had to do is change the way that I look at food. Just to reiterate is you don't have to have a written plan of action, but you may have in your mind certain things each day that you need to do. My day is pretty simple. I get up in the morning. I do some meditation. I read the For Today book, and I've started reading another book. I pray to God to keep me sober and abstinent. And I have been recently doing the serenity prayer in a different way. I've been saying, God, please give me the sanity and serenity to accept the things I cannot change. And please let me know what I need to accept. Grant me the courage to change the things I can't. And I really need to know what I need to change. And then give me the wisdom, the power, the willingness, and the strength to accept and to change. And so what I'm doing is I'm asking God for guidance in my day, each day, what I need to do. And that is very, very important for me. It helps me to be centered in the morning, to start to look what I need to change and what I need to accept. I noticed that there's a couple of people that may have started to reach the age of 60 in the room. And you all look younger. But anyway, old age is not for sissies. And, I am now having to deal with old age. What's going to happen to me in 10 years? What's going to happen to me? I have no kids. I have basically no family left. What's going to happen to me? So those types of things are things that I'm working on today. One of the things that's real important is the fellowship. I go to meetings, I go to lunch afterwards. I used to have parties at my house on the holidays. I'm starting to have a movie night where we get together and have a movie night because a lot of us don't want to go to the movies yet in the theaters. So I'm doing a lot of these things, and it's about the fellowship, helping each other. I will end with this. I was leading a retreat in Melbourne, Australia, probably 20 years ago, 25 years ago. And what I do is start a retreat out by having a trust walk where I divide people into two different groups. And I have one group close their eyes. The other group comes over and takes somebody they don't know and leads them around for 5 to 10 minutes with the other person keeping their eyes closed. Then it's reversed the other way. And everybody did it except one woman, and she wouldn't do it. And she said, "I'm blind, I can't lead." And that bothered me all day long. And so finally what I did at the end of the day, I went to her and I said, "I want you to lead me around." And she said, "Oh, I can't do that." And I said, "Yes, you can. You have a cane, use your cane, lead me around." And so she started to lead me around, and I closed my eyes. And I started to hear tables being moved. I heard chairs being moved. They were helping her to lead me. That's what the program is about. It's really the blind leading the blind. And it's about us helping other people in the program and to help them to use the tools and find what they need to do to stay abstinent on a regular basis. As I said, in AA, they said, even if your ass is falling off, don't drink. Even if your ass is falling off, don't overeat. If you don't overeat, more than likely your ass will fall off. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And I don't know if that was on the action plan or not, but whatever. Okay.
Okay, we will now open the floor for 2-minute question and answer and shares.
So I did have one question in the chat. Can you share how your relationship with your higher power fits into your action plan and helps you stay abstinent? That was from Robin B.
You're on mute, Joe.
The most important thing I do is I pray morning and evening. And I get down on my knees still after 38 years. It's getting harder, believe me. I get down on my knees and at my bed and ask God to keep me sober and abstinent. He's a very important part of my life. What I also do is before every meal, I pray. I have a very simple prayer. Most people will never know I say it. I say, "God, thank you for this beautiful food, and please help me not to overeat." And here recently I've been saying, "And let this be more than enough." So I am bringing God into my life at least 5 times a day. And, you know, when I was younger, I wanted to be a minister. It turned out that I didn't become one. But what it was I'm not embarrassed. You know, I was with a client that I was trying to borrow $350,000 from. And a woman came up to us as she got up at her table, and she said, "Oh, it's so great what you did. It's just wonderful." And I said, what are you talking about? She said, "Well, you're praying." And I said, "Oh, thank you." And he said, "What's going on?" I said, "It's nothing." But, you know, I still pray. And that's where I bring God into my program. Now, sometimes I just use God as an acronym, group of dieters, good orderly direction, whatever. But I still, you know, it's using as my higher power first, the meetings and the group and the people in it. And now I really have a higher power of my understanding.
Sandy, do you have a question? You're unmuted.
I had a kind of a comment on the plan of action. I am a compulsive overeater from Oklahoma City. I have been abstinent now 26 months from the sugar. I have managed to lose 70 pounds and maintained it through the pandemic. And the plan of action for me has been very similar to what was discussed. It has changed my whole life. It has turned it upside down, but it's great because I don't eat at any restaurants. I cook at home. I'm doing food balls for me now for next week, plan my food out. And it caused a rift in my social life. None of my friends, I mean, we can't go out because of what they want to do. And now we can go walk or do other things like that, but everybody wants to feed me, you know, and I told them this was not the children's zoo in Oklahoma City. I don't need to be fed, okay? And the plan of action on what it is that I can eat, and I have to watch everything because I'm sodium sensitive as well. And I knew when I came to OA, I was so desperate. I did 90 meetings in 90 days. And in one of the meetings, because I was a newcomer, I told who I was and how many meetings I had done. And a woman said to me, "Oh, you couldn't have done that many meetings." And I was somewhat discouraged, but I kept going. And I'm so thankful for Zoom because it allowed me to get to Dallas today. I wouldn't have drove to Dallas today. And it's been magnificent. I also have been able to find out who it is that I am because I didn't know me. When I got sober off the sugar, it changed so much. My vision, my handwriting, I came off of 5 or 6 medications, and it just changed who it is that I thought I was to who it is that I am now. And it's an absolute amazing. So I wanted to thank our speaker for doing what he has done today and enlightened us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And if you passed 10th in Portland in Oklahoma City, that's where I spent the first 25 years of my life. So, okay.
Hi, Joe. There's another question in the chat. Did you say that you pray 5 times a day before eating 5 times a day?
I pray 5 times, once in the morning, once at night, and before each meal, 3 meals. In other words, I pray, first one is in the morning, second one is at breakfast, third one is at lunch, fourth one is at dinner, and the 5th one is when I go to bed. I don't eat 5 meals a day, so yeah. I wish I could, but I don't.
Adrian, would you like to go ahead?
I'm Adrian. I'm a recovering compulsive overeater. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Joe, so much for reinforcing the importance of an action plan. I find that if I don't, and of course, my action plan used to be so anal and so long, and I would beat myself up if I didn't get everything done on it. Well, now I just know that pausing and connecting with God, if that's the only thing I can do, is read some literature and get spiritually connected, like it says in the big book, then I know my day is going to be okay. And I know that throughout the day, I can pause, pray, and use spiritual energy anytime I want. I can connect with my higher power at any time for direction. So that is part of my action plan, is to, because I'm a go-go do-do head. I need to pause. I need to take time to reconnect throughout my day. Otherwise, I get so wound up that before I used to go to the food to calm me down. Now I've learned to pause and go to God to get me centered and get that emotional balance, because it's all about my thinking. It's not about the food, it's about my thinking. So thank you for the action plan and the reminder to keep it simple. Thanks, Joe.
We have time for about one more question.
No more questions. We'd really like to thank you, Joe, for, and also everyone that attended this session. We've gotten so much out of your talk today. It really, I know for myself, it was great.